we are in the process of building our app. Popular Mechanics was on the iPad from day one in a Zinio form, which as most of you probably know is an exact replica of the magazine. And you can expand the type and stuff, but no particular interactivity. It's not a standalone app. So at the same time, by not jumping in initially and not having to work on emulators, we were able to start building right to the device itself. And what we're building right now is a prototype, a test, to really see where we can kind of push the limits of interactivity and what's going to work with readers. So here's a few of the things that we're working on. Now, I have to warn you that this app typically crashes three or four times every time I turn it on. So, but we'll take the plunge. One of the things we really thought about was, as long as we're going to the iPad, we're not restricted to what we did in print. And so most of what we're doing, we're actually designing from scratch, and including, you can see, this cover treatment. We have a nav similar to the Vanity Fair scrubber bar. We have a nav system that combines a flow of all the pages of the magazine with this this device that would allow you to zoom from one end to the other. Now you notice the pages I've loaded here aren't real yet. I should say the pages, our programmer from whom I had to wrench this earlier today to get out here. So a lot of this, some of the pages you're going to see here are dummy pages at this point. One of the things that's kind of fun about this is we've made it so you can expand this up and see, you know, a big view of it, or you can shrink it way down to whatever works for your, you know, the way that you want to read the magazine. Now let's go to, so getting around the magazine, being oriented, this is something that people complain a lot in digital devices. Anybody who's read a book on the Kindle knows how frustrating it is not to have that feel for what page you're on. So I think all of us, everybody up here is working on giving people a sense of where they are. Next challenge is just make it so you can read it. Almost everybody's apps so far have some reading optimized mode that's not really designed in the sense that you move into a realm that is primarily about text, and you know, and it can be a good way to read it. It can be quite elegant, but not all magazines, you know, most of our pages have a lot of text and pictures kind of intertwined. We don't necessarily go from one picture into a 2,000-word story that often in Popular Mechanics. So just making it readable was one of the first things we worked on. So we decided, you know, for some reason we just like to do things the hardest way. We're redesigning every single page, and because we already have a replica edition out there. So here we're redesigning every page. So this is a story about how they're running out of, don't get bit by snakes, because they're running out of the anti-venom, and the FDA won't approve the stuff that they use in Europe because it might hurt you. So this is a story that was one page in print, and now it's 2 pages on the iPad. You know, very simple. It looks just like reading a magazine, but when you actually compare them, you realize that we've had to use more pages. This is going to happen throughout in these devices. Another thing we do a lot is we have these multi-image new product pages, section we call Upgrade. That's really a mess on the iPad, because if you really look at the screen, it's actually not that big. It's only about 1/3 the size of a magazine spread. So, so what we did instead was we go to our new products page and we just give each. It's actually your own. You stay on the page and you just push these little buttons, and you get all these little babies just pop down. So that's kind of fun. I think that's the kind of thing our readers will be into. Another thing we do these things called abusive lab tests, where we torture consumer products until they're destroyed. Here we did one where we were testing backup hard drives by dropping them from progressively higher heights. And the magazine was one page. It was a little hard to get all that information on here. So again, we have a little button you push, and then the results come out, and you find out the one that did best survived a fall from, you know, 15 feet. So that's kind of a fun thing where let the reader engage the page. They don't actually have to do a lot of work, but there's some things there's layers that they can easily bring up. Another thing we're realizing is these pages aren't cut. You know, there's no reason to really make a firm boundary between one page and the next. We have this section in the front of the book all about new cars, but if you look at the way Michael Lawton, my creative designer, has designed it, the pages actually kind of flow into one another, you know, just because you can. Here's another basic 2-page column. Again, 2 pages of the magazine, 3 pages here. But let me bring back up my nav, and I want to zoom a little bit more to the back of the magazine. or to the feature well here. All right, here's a cover story about this guy who designs these crazy flying suits, jumps out of airplanes, and flies around for a while before he pulls the parachute and lands. So again, every page here is designed similar to what we do in print, but has somewhat different feel, fewer words per page. The whole idea is it's all readable. You don't have to expand type. You don't have to turn it over. You don't have to go to any other mode. You just read it like you do a regular magazine. But at the same time, we can do certain things that you can't do in a magazine. So what this guy's trying to do is now he's going to try to jump out of an airplane and then land without using a parachute. And so he's going to have this big ramp built out in Las Vegas. In the print magazine, we illustrated that with a nice diagram. Well, we went back to the same illustrator who did our diagram for print, and we said, we know you've got a 3D model of that. Can you animate it for us? So here's what came back from our artist. This is the helicopter. The guy jumps out. He zooms down. Those balloons are to help him guide to make sure that he doesn't miss his cool ramp structure. And he hits that shiny ramp and slides on his chest, hopefully not leaving, turning into a gooey mess in the process. And then when the video's done, you get all the diagram and all the sidebar information that was in the print magazine. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah, exactly. That's the bar at the airport.
Another thing we had, there's no real, there are not a lot of limits how many pages you want to do. So here's a story that was just a sidebar in the issue about these people who build these crazy cars and race them at the Bonneville Salt Flats. No reason that your opener has to be just one page or one spread. So there's a 3-page opening spread in effect. Then you get into the story, some sidebar stuff, and then you've seen a couple of different examples of what you can do with photo galleries. So these are some pictures. We didn't really have room to run all of these in the print magazine, but here you get a nice look at some of these cars that these guys buy, and then build rather, and then each of these can become a full page, and you can scroll through the different. Look at that guy wedged into that thing. These different kind of, some of them are antiques, some of them are really hand-built hobby cars, but then they test them at the maximum possible speeds and try to set various records. So for our readers, maybe this is our version of the World Cup soccer players. So none of this we could do in print. All these pictures were crammed into just a couple of pages in our print magazine. And then another thing, of course, when you think of a magazine on popular mechanics, it's about how-to. And what we're trying to do is use the interactivity not to decorate the pages or just go like, gee whiz stuff, but really facilitate how people are going to use the magazine. So here, you get a good 3D diagram. But again, with the idea of photo galleries, where we might have room for 5 or 6 how-to pictures on how to build this workbench in print, here we can do as many pictures as we need. And you can blow these up. These are full page. It typically crashes this app right now while we're still working on it, so I'm gonna avoid that. But so you have, imagine if you're doing recipes, yoga positions, all sorts of service that all of us do. Now you're not limited to the small number of pictures. So in what's technically like a 4-page story, you can have 20 full-page pictures. I want to go back to the diagram too. Again, we went back to the same illustrator who did the diagram for us in print, who built a 3D model in his computer of this, and asked him to give us an animation of how all these parts come together, so the reader could really see how this thing gets put together and how they're supposed to build it. So that is, again, something all of us can do, but I think it adds, so we're getting to the point where it's not just, is it as good as print? Is it as easy to use as print? But maybe we can do a little something different that we couldn't do in print. And then also, since it's a 3D object, we should be able to manipulate the object. So if you want to see it from behind, you can blow it up, and you can have hours of fun just fooling around.